everyone. Yes, good morning everyone. Yes, Pranali, good morning. Yes, everyone, are you there? Am I audible to all of you? Yes, am I audible to all of you? Okay. Okay. Yes, how many people are there? Okay, okay. So, so these are the two subscription from our side. One is plus subscription, other is iconic subscription. Please subscribe to Unacademy so that you will get the benefit of it, and we are there for you. We can help you in all the situation, and Unacademy provide you the guidance at your doorstep from the expertise. So if you want to take the subscription, so please use my code. This is Harshvardhan. You will get a flat 10% discount at the same time. Yes, shall we start? Okay. In the last lecture, we discussed about the Indian foreign policy determinants. In that, we mentioned that while designing Indian foreign policy, these are the five determinants are there. First is national interest. Of course, for any nation, it's important. But national interest, it doesn't mean national security only. It doesn't mean national security. It includes the socio, politico, economic upgradation of country. Socio-political-economic upgradation of the country. So the national policy is designed based on it. It is based on national interest. Clear? Second, we mentioned about the historical factors and cultural factors also play a role. We mentioned the example that Indo-Nepal, Indo-Bhutan, Indo-Pakistan. We mentioned about that. The geography also played important role. We mentioned that this South Asian region. Basically, we can mention about the Indian subcontinent. Indian subcontinent. Clear. Next important thing we mention about the prevailing international environment that we already discussed how it is. So we mentioned the example of Iran, India. It was affected due to USA. Clear. So we already mentioned it. Next, we mentioned that federal structure also played role in Indian context. How it is so? Because the states like Bengal, northeastern state, in Punjab, Rajasthan. They shared international borders, and their consent, their opinion also matters while designing the foreign policy with the neighboring countries. So this point we already discussed in the last lecture. Next thing, it is just a quick recap of it so that you will understand it very well. Then we mention about the Nehru as an architect of India, Indian foreign policy, as he was the prime minister as well as he was the foreign minister at that time, Minister of External Affairs. So he gave the broad framework, and that broad framework is based on universal principle. For example, independent foreign policy and should not be influenced by any. And it was a period of Cold War, that is USA and USSR influenced the countries, their foreign policy. So India doesn't want to fall into that trap, so they followed the independent foreign policy. Second, promotion of international peace. That is an important aspect, universal aspect, because world suffered from first and second world war. And if peace is not going to prevail, then there is a end of world. So Nehru was supporter of the peace, so he promoted that at international level as well. Third important we mention about the UN support, means he cooperated with UN and supported the idea of UN because he knows that UN can act as a third party which will help the world to make a better place. Clear? So he supported that. Some his Nehru critics of Nehru criticizes Nehru over that he was too much rely on United Nations, and we had a problem with Pakistan because of that. So it was a criticism over the Nehru. But Nehru's intention was very noble and he supported that idea. Next, we mentioned the pursuing of goal of disarmament because we know that armament race led to world wars. We know that. We know it very well because arms led to destruction and we do not want to support the idea of destruction. What we want, peace and prosperity. So that's why India followed this broad framework while designing their policy. Next important, that is sixth aspect of broad framework, that is anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism, anti-racism, and basically anti-dominance. Basically, anti-dominance means influence of one country over the other, we against that idea. Next, we mentioned the South-South cooperation, that the most of the southern hemisphere countries were victims of colonialism. Yes, and Nehru's idea or Nehru's broad framework was that these countries should support each other in the process of development. Next, this is seventh broad framework, and eighth broad framework is of non-alignment. And the representative example of it is establishment of NAM, non-alignment movement. Non-alignment means not aligned to USA, not aligned to USSR, independent in decision making. Independent in decision making. Clear? So this policy we followed. So these are the broad framework based on universal ideas, and these ideas prevail till today. India followed the same ideology because of it is based on universal principle. Okay. Next, we mentioned in last lecture three phases of Indian foreign policy. We mentioned 1947 to 62 as a Nehruvian period. This period is based on internationalism, idealism, and non-alignment. Some criticizes Nehru as an idealistic person. There are few people or critics who, but yesterday we mentioned that it was a need of time. It was a need of time. So Nehru's idealism is based on realism. So we mentioned that. Okay. Next we mentioned 1962 to 1921 self-help approach. After 1962 war, India realizes India realizes that they want to strengthen themselves. They want to strengthen themselves. It should not be depend on diplomacy only. It should be depend on the force as well. You have to be strong force, strong contender, not just in terms of military, but in terms of economic force as well. So we adopted our foreign policy is based on the broad framework only, but slight changes introduced, which was necessary according to the time. And this self-help approach is very well represented with India-Russia relation. Indo-Russia relation is based on this self-help approach that we took help from Russia, yes, for developing arms ammunition as well as missiles as well as aircraft. Clear? One very best example of it is BrahMos. Yes, do you remember BrahMos? Yes, exactly. The cruise missile of India and Russia. We jointly developed it. Next, we mentioned that 1991 till today, India followed the pragmatic approach. And why it is so? Yesterday I mentioned that is fall of USSR in 1991, and we lost our friend. Russia is weak. Since Russia was weak at that time. So we want someone to help us. We want someone to support us, as well as we should not rely totally on one and hurting the interest of other country. So that's why India changes her approach in the foreign policy, but still all are based on the broad framework. So what kind of pragmatic approach? We change our attitude towards USA. We change our attitudes towards Arab nations. We change our attitude towards China. And we, at the same time, we supported the idea of regional blocks. These are the representative example how India adopted a pragmatic approach. And regional blocks we mention about SARC, we mention about IPSA, we mention about BIMSTEC, and one more thing, that is BRIC. Yes, BRICS. So such kind of approaches India adopted in this pragmatic thing. Clear? So in short, we can mention in common word, if आम भाषा में यदि कहें, in common word we can mention this is based on idealism. This is combination of idealism plus realism. This is based on realism. More realism. Clear? So such kind of approaches we change, but all are depend on the broad framework. All are dependent on broad framework. So till this point we mentioned in the last lecture. Now in today's lecture we are going to discuss NAM. Yesterday I mentioned this background as well, that NAM was established, that is non-aligned movement or non-alignment movement. The process it started. The background is also important because without the background you cannot consider any movement, how it formed, how it worked. Everybody said the relevance of NAM. So basically you should know or you should have a basic understanding how this process started. So we mentioned in 1947 At New Delhi, Jawaharlal Nehru took initiative to organize Asian Relation Conference. Here, the newly independent nation state participated to show the strength and to show the solidarity with all Asian countries. Basic aim that these countries were the victims of colonialism and to protect their interest in the face of Cold War. They should not fall into the trap of new colonialism. It was basic intention. So in 1955 in Indonesia, another conference organized known as Afro-Asian Conference in that 29 countries from Asia and Africa participated in that, where they conceived the idea of non-alignment means should not involve in Cold War politics, neither with the capitalism, neither with the communism. Should follow independent foreign policy. Okay. So this idea of non-alignment came into reality in 1961 at Belgrade. At Belgrade, as we mentioned, that it was the capital of Yugoslavia, but this country ended after disintegration of USSR. And now this Yugoslavia is divided into Serbia, Montenegro, Slovenia, etc. Clear? So right now there is no such country known as Yugoslavia. At that time it was the case. And there are the four people which played an important role in designing non-alignment movement, and they were Nehru from India, Tito from Yugoslavia, Nasser from Egypt, and Sukarno from Indonesia. So Nam was basically the brainchild of these four great leaders of that time. Clear? So this was a background. 1947 Asian Conference, 1955 Afro-Asian Conference. So this conference culminated into formation of NAM into 1961 at Belgrade. Okay. Next. So today we are going to discuss what NAM exactly means. Non-alignment means. Does it mean neutrality? Does it mean neutrality into international affairs? Means, for example, world was divided into, it was a Cold War era, world was divided into capitalist and communist ideology. World was divided into these two ideologies, capitalism and communism. Anything is going to happen here, we are not going to entertain it. Is that the neutrality means? Is that the neutrality means related to the NAM? Means if anything, any international event is going on, or if any international crisis is going on, they are not going to take any part in that, as they are neutral. Is that the case? Yes, everyone. What do you think? Yes, what do you think? Neutrality. Yes, Pranali, what do you think? What this neutrality means? Yes, that neutrality means that, let's take example that these two people are fighting with each other, and you are the third person here with a smile. These two people are fighting with each other. This person is beating this person is strong, this person is weak, this person is beating this person, and you are here just watching, enjoying it. Does it mean neutrality? Let's take example of it only. Just instead of a strong person, I can mention one country. For example, USA, weaker country. Take any example of that. Suppose Vietnam. As compared to USA, Vietnam was very weak. US attacked Vietnam, and you as a India watching and enjoying the updates. What's going on? Does it mean that neutrality? Yes, everyone. Does that means neutrality? No. This is not considered as a neutrality. What it considered as, this case is a sheer case of inactivism. Inactivism. Clear? Because this is a case of injustice. This is a case of injustice, and you as a nation state are not going to respond. That means you are supporting injustice. Does that neutrality means in Indian context? Can we say that neutrality? No, it's not at all the case. It's not at all the case. What that neutrality means, the same example I'm just going to quote. This is the USA, this is the Vietnam, this is Vietnam, US attacked, US attacked Vietnam, India as a third person is reacting against it, and that reaction not based on any prejudice, not based on any prejudice, and this is known as a neutral opinion. Yes, exactly. Yes, Sankalpa, not letting them dominate us or affect our policy. Yes, that is the case. As here we mentioned that when US attacked Vietnam, India's reaction is basically not affected with any prejudice. Their opinion or their what we can say reaction should be based on merits. Who is right, who is wrong, irrespective of country is strong or weak, because it is a question of justice. And yes, that is when non-alignment word is we mention, it is based on neutrality, and this neutrality is based on positive concept, not a negative concept. The first example I discussed with you is based on negative concept, but this is the example which is based on positive concept, and that is free from prejudice. Okay. One more thing, one more example I just want to mention with you, and it happened as we mentioned that India and Russia developed a friendly relations. And what happened? What happened? Russia invaded Afghanistan. India opposed it and strongly condemned the action of Russia. Clear? So this shows that our neutrality is not based on any prejudice. Means prejudice should be like that. How can we react against Russia? Russia is our friend. Russia supported us in the time of crisis and all. So we have to support them. So it is not at all the case. If it is based on justice, then we are going to support you. If it is based on truth, but if it is not, if you are wrong, definitely we are going to react against you. That is neutrality. And as I mentioned, this is a responsive term. What is neutrality here? It is a positive concept. It is based on response. India, this is the response. And that response is based without any bias. Clearly? So what exactly neutrality means? This is the case. Clear to everyone? So if we sum up what we have written, it means an independent foreign policy adopted by the member states and play an active role in international affairs. So what is non-aligned means? Independent foreign policy adopted by member states and play, this word is very important, active role in international affairs. Clear everyone? Next, features of features of non-alignment movement. First important feature, and it is very common, idea of maintaining independent status. NAM love this thing, independent. It should not be dependent on anything. It should not have any prejudice. Independent. Independent status and policy in international affairs. That's what is very important. First feature is independent status and policies in international affairs. Second feature, non-neutrality, non-passivism. Got it? Non-neutrality, non-passivism means they followed activism, they follow neutrality, etc. That is the important feature. Third, dynamic and active response, quick response, active. It should not be the case that you are not responding because of your vested interest. No. If you think so, that somebody did a mistake, then it's a duty of NAM to respond it quickly and actively. Fourth feature, not based on any specific principle or doctrine, but based on realistic and pragmatic approach. Please remember this thing. This is the most important feature of NAM. It is not based on any ideology or specific principle or doctrine. It is based on realism. It is based on pragmatic approach. And that's the universal idea. Clear? Next feature, oriented towards international interest of developing countries. That is important. National interest is very important feature of NAM. Means it should not be the case that if you are a member of NAM and you are not focusing on national interest. means you're following the policy of now at the cost of national interest. It should not be the case. National interest is important. It should not be compromising while following any policy. So what exactly their idea, their orientation is national interest of developing countries. Clear? Next important feature. NAM is not acted as a third block or third force to counter two other blocks. Which block? Which block? Capitalist and communist. Clear? It's not, the word is very specific. It's not a third block. Means they said that okay, we don't like capitalism, we don't like communism. We are going to challenge their existence. It's not at all the case. They do not want to challenge it. It was not act as a third force to counter first and second. Clear? And what exactly it is? It is an alternative. It is an alternative. Remember, alternative to them. No challenge, no countering. Alternative means if you don't want to be a part of first, if you don't want to be a part of second, then please you're welcome. Clear? One more thing I just want to discuss. There is a prejudice or misinformation among you related to blocks. Generally, we mention first block as a capitalist block, second block as a communist. Okay. This block is also known as first world countries. These are known as second world countries. First world country, second world country. First world countries are basically the capitalist countries, second world countries are basically communist countries. One more is there, third world countries. And some of you quite aware of that, India is one among them. India is one among them. Third world country, India is one among them. So my point is that there is a misconception. Yes, there is a misconception. Third world countries are poor countries. Third world countries are poor countries. Misconception is there. Third world countries are, or we can say that nobody pay attention to them. Means neglected. Is that the case? Yes, first world country, capitalist world, second world country, communist world, third world countries. India is one of them. And there is a misconception that third world countries are poor countries. They don't have they don't have any opinion. They are most neglected in world context. Is that the case? Yes, is that the case? That's why I mentioned the word. It is a misconception. third world countries are not poor countries. They are not at all neglected. So these all are misconceptions. Then what exactly the third world countries? What exactly the third world countries? Those who are neither. Yes, Preeti said no, developing countries. Yes, on all on neither part of first world nor part of second world. Neither the part of first world nor the part of second world. So that's why they are considered as third world countries. They are part of that, and most of the countries are developing countries. Got it? Yes, the concept is clear. First world, second world, third world. Good. Okay. So these are the basic features of noun. Next thing, objectives. That is also important. What were the objective? What are the objective of noun? Because when it was established, what were their objective? And right now noun is in existence. What are their objective? Whether their objective changes with the time or whether it remains the same. That is the question, and we are going to discuss that objectives of noun. The first most important objective to maintain independent status. So please remember, whenever the word noun is there, always this is the first word. Independent, they love independent. Independent foreign policy, independent stand. Clear? So what's the objective? To maintain independent stand, that means neutrality. That means neutrality. The second objective, abolition of colonialism, imperialism, means in other words it is mentioned as anti-dominance. Yes, NAM, before establishment of NAM, the member states were fighting against the colonialism. They protested against it. They were against the imperialism and they want the victim to be freed as soon as possible. So abolition of colonialism is another aspect, another objective of it. Third, maintenance of peace, international peace. In short, no war. Because if the war is there, destruction is there. If destruction is there, no economic prosperity is there. Clear? Okay, everyone. Maintenance of international peace and why it is there. If you want prosperity, then peace should be there. If there will be no conflict, it promoted the trade and other activities. Next, end of racism. Yes, Nam took a strong stand in South African apartheid. Yes, Nam took a strong stand against the South African apartheid. Next, disarmament is also objective. Just look at it now, the objective very carefully. You will get to know it's very simple. It is based on the universal principle of peace. Impartiality, it is independent. Against dominance, end of colonialism. Promotion of peace, end of racism, that is discrimination. Disarmament, because disarmament leads to peace. Next, strengthening UN is also objective of NAM, and why it is so? Because UN is not related to any country. UN is not related, not a proprietary right of any country. It can act as a neutral body to promote peace. Clear? To promote peace, it's United Nations. Means if it is a conflict between any two nations, United Nations can solve. So that's why they want to strengthen it. Next objective, anti any foreign dominance. Means basically they were against colonialism, imperialism, then neo-colonialism, etc. Means the objective of NAM is basically rejecting a dominance of one country over other in all the sphere, either socio, economic, political, or ecological, anything, because it is based on universal idea. The objectives are clear. Yes, everyone, objectives are clear. Yes, anyone, any doubt, any query related to objectives, or it is just a simple? Next, so no doubt at all. Very good, very good. Next thing, relevance of NAM for third world. Relevance of NAM for third world countries. Just imagine if NAM was not there. Just imagine if NAM was not present there. Do you really think so? These two blocks, capitalist and communist, treated small countries with the respect? Do you really think so? They are going to treat them nicely? Don't you think so? These small countries fall into the trap of Cold War, fall into the trap of neocolonialism. What do you think? Just take example of any particular country. Means forget about the India as a bigger country. Forget about India. What about the African nations? What about Asian nations? What about them? Because most of these African and Asian nations never had experience of democracy. So don't you think so? It's easy for these countries to fall into the trap of new colonialism. Don't you think so? They become a new victim of economic exploitation. Don't you think so? If NAM was not there, basically NAM provided a platform. NAM was basically a platform, a group, a strength. NAM was basically a platform, group, a strength of these developing countries. Getting my point? Yes, everyone, you're getting my point. In my childhood days, Doordarshan plays ad that one stick is there, they broke that stick, they took another stick, they broke that stick and threw. But when that a bodybuilder collected all the stick and tried to break it, it was not possible. So in that particular ad, it is written, Ekta mein hi Shakti hai. Man's strength is there in unity. Clear? So just imagine these were the small independent countries, don't have any experience of democracy and all. If NAM were not there, then definitely most of the country fall into the trap of new colonialism and became the victim of economic exploitation once again. Clear? So that's why NAM was relevance for them at that time. NAM is a relevance for the third world right now as well. Okay. So relevance of NAM for third world countries. What's the relevance? Creates a base for it creates a base for maintenance of independent outlook and policies. We already discussed it. Very simple. Maintenance of independent outlook and policies. Second, promoting national interest. Because NAM, in the NAM, this is an inherent, integral part of it. Integral part. But it was not the case in First World and Second World. Yes, national interest was not a part in First World and Second World. Why? Because initially they followed the war of ideology, and national interest, they didn't pay attention. The war of ideology, and because of that, at the risk of national interest, they continued the policies. Yes, everyone? Clear? So what's the difference between first two world and third world? Because of NAM promoted, okay, because NAM promoted national interest. That's the one thing. Next thing, it created the basis for favorable condition for economic development. It creates the basis for favorable condition for economic development, and we know that how it is so, because NAM promoted peace, and peace leads to prosperity, and prosperity leads to economic growth. Clear? Next, international recognition. That is the most important thing. If you can imagine the situation of India with the others, then you're doing mistake. India was having, is having recognition since ancient time. India was having recognition since ancient time. This is the case 1. But the case 2 is important for us. There were many countries, small countries, who had no recognition, who had no recognition. They are too small to hear. Clear? There are two cases. If you compare with the India, then you cannot imagine how NAM gave the international recognition. But if you go to other case, the second case, small countries where they don't have any voice. Just imagine America on one side and any small country on the other side. Do you really think so that anybody is going to listen or anybody is interested to know what's the problem with that? Nobody. But here is this case. But here, as this is a noun, this is a USA, and any particular country is here. If individual country is there, nobody is going to pay attention. But as it is a member of NAM, his idea is shared by other, and his idea is basically the idea of NAM, and USA has to listen. USA has to listen. Why? Because in the first day we mentioned NAM is a group of around 85% of world population. Along with that, NAM is two-third. NAM's membership is two-third of UN. NAM represents the 85% of world population and two-third of, no, sorry, it's not of 85%, it is a 55%, sorry. It is a 55% of world population and two-third of UN membership. So just imagine if any bloc is so popular, powerful, don't you think so others are going to listen? Yes. And that's I want to tell you. International recognition. Next, promoting the objectives of any kind of foreign dominance. Promoting the objectives of any kind of foreign dominance like imperialism, apartheid, etc. Means basically what we have to say that this everything is anti-dominance. Means there should not be any dominance of any country over the others. And NAM gave this platform. As we mentioned, NAM criticizes South Africa for their apartheid. NAM members broke their contract with or broke their ties with South Africa over the issue of apartheid. Okay. Role of NAM, next important step. Role of NAM. So everyone, is there any problem to understand the relevance of NAM for third world countries? Yes, everyone. Do you have any doubt that how NAM was relevant for third world? Is there any question? Is there any question? Anyone? No. No? Very. Please ask the question, that will be fine, because when you are going to ask the question, I have to answer it. Yes. And there are few students who never ask the question because of the fear. Your question may help them to solve their doubts. But I always want you, all of you, ask the question fearlessly, because you are going to be a bureaucrat. You want to be a bureaucrat. Yes. And there you have to ask the question. You have to solve the problem. So make this habit from today only. So please do not hesitate to ask the question. It's free. Yes, feel free to ask the question. I don't have any prejudice. Clear? So you can ask the question. Okay. Role of NAM in international affairs. This is another subtopic. Role of NAM in international affairs. We should know that. No? NAM is established in 61. These are the principles. But they should be comes into your mind. What they did? Okay, you establish an organization, you based on this principle, that principle. But what's the concrete outcome of that? That is an important thing, and we are going to discuss that here. Role of NAM in international affairs means what NAM did in past. First thing, NAM supported the idea of decolonization. It pressurized the colonial country to vacate. It pressurized colonial master to vacate their colonies and make these countries free. So this is the first role played by NAM after Second World War. Clear? So they strongly supported the idea of decolonization after Second World War. Second role, anti-domination, as I mentioned, anti-imperialism, anti-racism, anti-colonialism, anti whatever the anti is there, anti-domination. Clear? So NAM rejected the idea of dominance of one country over the other, and that's the role NAM played since its beginning. Next important thing, maintenance of independent status of third world countries. Independent status. Remember, independent status of third world countries after their independence. Means, as I mentioned earlier, these are the new in, means most of the countries are newly independent. So what they want, they have to be independent. They should not fall into trap. Clear? Next role of NAM, yes, promoting South-South cooperation. And earlier we mentioned what is South-South cooperation. The countries in the southern hemisphere should support each other for development. for development, that is South-South cooperation. And most of these countries, the southern countries, were the victims of colonialism. Were the victims of colonialism. So to promote South-South cooperation, do you know any example of South-South cooperation? Yes, do you know any example of South-South cooperation? Yes, everyone? Yes, any example of South-South cooperation? Yes, Preeti, exactly. IPSA. And yes, exactly. IPSA. Then, yes. Go ahead. India, Brazil, South Africa. Then, yes, any other example of it? Any other example? Promesa. Yes, Ashwin, Promesa. Don't you think BIMSTEC is also an example of it? Yes, exactly, exactly. So you should know these things. Yes. Can we say one more example? ASEAN. Yes, can we say ASEAN? Yes, everyone. Fast, fast, be fast. Who are the members of ASEAN? Southeast Asian countries. So can we say that it is a part of South-South cooperation? Yes, exactly. Good. Clear? So idea is clear. North-South cooperation. That is also an important role played by North. North-South means when we mention South-South cooperation is a cooperation between developing nation. North-South cooperation is basically developed and developing. Developed and developing country. There should be cooperation between them. Is there any example of North-South cooperation? Do you know any bloc? any organization, any association. Yes, yes, Ashwini said G20. Okay, then that's it. Yes, please, please. G20. And can we say SCO? Can we say SCO? Can we say BRICS? Pranali, how SARC can be part of North-South cooperation? SARC is an organization. Where is SARC? Hmm. SARC is South Asian. How can we say that it's a North-North? SARC is not considered as a North-South cooperation. What is SCO then? What is SCO? Hmm. Yes, Preeti, Ashwini, Pranali, what is SCO? Good, good, good. If those who don't know, just Google it. You will get to know what exactly the SCO is. Okay, so we are mentioning the role of NAM in international affairs is first decolonization of the process after Second World War. Then they played an important role in anti-domination movement, maintenance of Indian status of Third World after their independence, South-South cooperation, North-South cooperation, and the very important thing that they provided an alternative to the Cold War politics. Yes, Ashwini, exactly. Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That is the example of North-South cooperation. Exactly. So, what's the role of NAM in international affairs? It provided an alternative to Cold War politics, alternative of international peace and cooperation. Yes. So, what is the definition of international cooperation and international peace? Prevailed at that time. It is one step ahead of that. Okay. Next, now it is a question related to the India, how it helped India during Cold War era, because our topic is Indian foreign policy. Indian foreign policy. Yes, and NAM is the most important aspect of Indian foreign policy. So we discussed NAM initially, and then in next lecture we are going to discuss the phases: first phase, second phase, third phase. Okay, so that's why first we included NAM. So how it helped India during Cold War? What do you think? Whether it is beneficial for India or not? It's very simple. Basic principle. Independent foreign policy. Independent stance. So it helped India by establishing sound and beneficial relation. The word is beneficial relation with the both blocks. Means at the same time India, Russia India, USA. Both the block because of the noun. We followed the noun and it is based on realism, pragmatic approach. So India can have a relation with the Russia, India can have a relation with USA. A very best example I just want to share with you how it was beneficial for us. So in 1962, as some of you are quite aware of this war in Indo-China war, and you know that China invaded India, China dominated that war. Yes, you all know this thing, but you also know that China unilaterally withdrew from the war. China unilaterally withdrew from the war. How it is so? As I mentioned, China dominated the war. China captured the Indian territories at many places. China captured our territory. China was powerful at that time. So how China? How it was so? Because India took help, asked help from UK and USA, and they supported Indian claim. And because of the fear of USA, China did this thing. Because of the fear of USA, China withdrew unilaterally from Indian territory. Clear? So how this relation was beneficial? And this is the first example of it. Let me share the another example of it. The another first example of it we mentioned USA helped India in Indo-China War of 1962. This is the first relation. Now here the second case. As you know, in 1971, Indo-Pak India-Pakistan war was there. In 1971, Indo-Pak war was going on, and which resulted into, yes, we are very proud of it, that India gave birth to a new country, that is Bangladesh. We know the issue of East Pakistan, West Pakistan, how it was so and all. We all know everything. But at the time, during this time, 1971, Cold War was on peak. Pak gets help from USA. Mostly Pakistan gives you help from USA. And the issue of East Pakistan was so severe, there was a problem of migration. All the Bangladeshi crossed the border and they took refuge in India. And Indian financial condition was not that much strong, so it was a burden over us. So our then Prime Minister strongly handled that situation with help of Indian Army, and that leads to war in December 1971. Okay. When India waged a war against Pakistan, we opened the front from eastern and western side of Pakistan, and that time USA threatened India. At that time, USA threatened India, and they said that they are going to send the warship. But Russia stood with us. and they tackle USA. They tackle USA. So do you get it? As India was having independent stand, so that's why in the war of 1962, US support us. But at the same time, in 1971, Russia supported us. And how it is possible, how it was possible? It was possible because India followed independent foreign policy, and because of that reason, it established a sound relation and beneficial relation with the both power blocks. Clear how it helped India. Second, it allowed to play active role in global issues. NAM provided us to play an active role because as an independent, no prejudice, no bias. So that's why we can act anywhere. We express our opinion fearlessly because we were not living under the mercy of any bloc. Clear? So India played an active role in international affairs at that time, and the background is provided by NAM as well because India was one of the leader of NAM. Clear? So Indian opinion matters a lot as an individual, as a leader of NAM as well. So best example, Korean War, India played an important role through NAM. Suez Canal issue, India played role. Clear? So what are these issues? Korean War, Suez Canal War. In the World History lecture, I am going to discuss these issues in detail. But for for general information, I just want to tell you that because of this Korean War, Korea divided into two, that is North Korea and South Korea. Okay. Next, NAM helped India allowed to focus on economic development. Yes, that is the case. Why? Because we promoted peace. We promoted disarmament and we promoted neutrality. And because of all these things, countries like UK, Germany, Russia, that is USSR help us to build four integrated steel plants. Clear? Because of all these things, all these issues, aids were given to us. Clear? So how India focused on economic development? Because of these principles leads to prosperity, and other nations also support India in terms of economic development. Clear? Yes. Next, sound relations with all the power allow us to establish individual relation with the countries after the end of Cold War. This is the most important point for us. Please remember this thing. Please remember this thing. This now moment allow us to establish an individual relation after the Cold War, after the end of Cold War, because we were not the member of bloc. For example, USA was there. This relation improved after 1991 lot. Clear? Russia, we improved the relation with Russia as well. We had a relation with UK. We had a relation with the France. Clear? We improved the relation with the China. As we were not a member of any bloc, so that's why it gives us a freedom. So after end of Cold War, these state means capitalist They're no longer there means in real sense. Communist no longer as a bloc. These are not considered as a bloc right now. Now national interests are important for them. And India, since beginning of their foreign policy, focuses on national interest. So it helps us to develop the bilateral relations with these countries. Help us to individual relation. That means it helps India to develop bilateral relations. Yes, everyone. Get it? As I mentioned, this point is important for us. It's very important. Did you get it? Is there any doubt? Did you get it? Is there any doubt to understand this point? Yes, exactly. No doubt at all. Very good. Very good. Next. So, after that means we can mention after end of Cold War. After end of Cold War, there were various questions or question marks over the noun, like like why noun is still in existence when it serves the purpose. This question is valid. This question is valid. Why it is so? Because noun acts as an alternative to Cold War politics. Yes, this question is very valid. Why noun is still in existence when it serves the purpose? It acts as an alternative to Cold War politics, and now no Cold War. Now it is the end of. Valid question. Next, what's the relevance of noun after end of Cold War? This is also valid question. Third, this is the most important thing and most important question mark over the existence of noun. As the disunity is vivid among the member states. As disunity is vivid among the member states, then why should not member declare the end of noun? Very valid question. After end of Cold War, it's the disunity among the member states visible. So why should not end? If you don't have a unity, why should not end the noun? What do you think? What do you think? Why should not we end the noun as we are the founding member of noun? Why we continue the process? Why we continue the noun this moment as these are the question marks over their existence? What do you think? After reading this question, don't you think so that we have to end the noun? As you know, there is irregularity. No permanent secretariat is there for NAM. Yes, members are meeting just once in a while. They are not acted as a block. Then why to continue it? Or is it just like a holiday? Hence, after 3 4 years, the head of the states want to enjoy and they gather together at one place, sometimes in India, sometimes in Egypt, sometimes in any other country. Is that the case? Yes, I am asking you the question and I want answer from you. Yes, I want answer from you. No response? Yes, no response at all. I'm quite surprised. Don't you think so? These are the valid questions. Yes, anyone is there. Anyone is there. I'm asking question to you. So if it is possible, please let me know. I think so you want to keep your knowledge with you and you just want to express your knowledge while writing mains. Maybe that can be the reason. Maybe that can be the reason. Yes. Now I get it. Why people are not responding. They just want to show their talent, real talent in examination hall. So please remember, if you are not going to show your talent, so-called, here, then it's very difficult for you to show your so-called talent there. Okay? Because you have to do practice. Hmm. Next, relevance of NAM after Cold War. Because whatever the question or question marks, criticism over the existence of NAM. So let's check whether NAM is still relevant or not, whether we should end it or we have to continue it. One thing is very clear, disunity is there, some problems are there, but can end of the moment is an option. So let's check it whether NAM is relevant after Cold War or not. The first thing, the first thing that is NAM is not an alliance. Remember one thing. NAM is not an alliance which is based and or formed on any specific principle or specific purpose. Yes, NAM was not formed for any specific purpose. It is based on universal principle. I mentioned earlier also. I mentioned earlier as well that it is based on universal principles, not an alliance based on universal principle like non-passivism, activism, that means non-neutrality, foreign, independent foreign policy, international cooperation, peace, disarmament. Don't you think so? That these all are the issues prevalent in today's world. Don't you think so? There is a need of independent foreign policy. Don't you think so? There is a need of active response. Don't you think so? There is a need of neutrality. There is a need of disarmament. Yes, all are required. They were required, they are, and they will be. So that's why NAM was not designed for any specific purpose. It is based on universal principle, and these principles is like universal truth. It was true in past, it is true in present, and it will be true in future. Clear? So these are the basic principles that lead to peace. Clear? So now is relevant. Second, end of Cold War. End of Cold War, but it doesn't mean end of conflict. Can you say that end of Cold War is the end of conflict? If it is so, then what's USA and China doing? What China is doing with its neighboring countries? What Russia is doing with USA? Valid point. So please remember, it is the end of Cold War, but it's not the end of conflict. And if there is a conflict, NAM is always relevant, because in the conflict you required the people, the forces which promoted the peace. You required the people and forces which have independent, non-prejudiced stand. Clear? So NAM is relevant. Next important thing, end of colonialism, imperialism. Yes, of course. I don't think so. You will get any colonies visible anywhere. But do you really think so? It is the end of exploitation? Yes. Do you really think so? It is the end of exploitation from all the sides? No. So that means colonialism, colonialism and imperialism is a one form of exploitation. Is of the one of the form of exploitation, but others are present, and you know that NAM is against dominance. Clear? So exploitation change their form, so NAM is relevant. Clear? Next important thing, next question, these are the question mark over the NAM, and we are providing the answer for it, whether the NAM is relevant or not. Maintenance of independent outlook and status of the nation is important. In international affairs, maintenance of independent outlook of the nation and independent status of the nation is important. This is a universal principle. This independent word is attached to NAM since beginning. So NAM is relevant. If you want to maintain independent outlook, then the principles are NAM. Principles of the NAM are relevant. Next, development of economic perspective was an important during Cold War, and it is still important. Means economic development was an important aspect of NAM during Cold War. And don't you think so? Economic development is still an important topic for world. Yes, it is. So NAM is still relevant. NAM is still relevant because it is based on universal principle. Clear? Next, cooperation among the developing nation was relevant. So it is still relevant. Example, South-South cooperation. Now what NAM wants? NAM wants cooperation among developing nations. So this concept was there. This concept is present right now as well. Next, strengthening international organization is an important aspect of NAM. Like we mentioned, United Nations. It is still important. So that's why we want expansion of UNSC. We want democratization. We want democratization of United Nations. Clear? So when we establish NAM, at that time we always want international organization to be strengthened, to be strong. And why they should be strong? Because they can promote peace. It was relevant, it is relevant, and that's why we demanded expansion of UNSC and democratization of United Nations. So now it's still relevant. Next, issue of sustainable development is important, which subsume the environmental issues. Nowadays, since after 2015, sustainable development goal is our aim. Sustainable development goal is our aim, and it includes the environmental issues. And now advocates it. Now advocates the protection of environment. So it is still relevant. Yes, everyone. Do you get it? This I want to show you once again. These were the question marks over the existence of NAM. These were the question marks over the existence of NAM. Some said that why NAM is still in existence when it serves the purpose. Some said that it's the end of Cold War, so NAM should be dissolved. Some said that it's a disunity, you have to end the NAM. Then, after looking all these things, don't you think so? NAM is still important. One more. We mentioned a few points. There are few more. And why we are going to discuss this thing? Because this is a very important topic from mains point of view, and relevance of NAM can be asked as a main question in the exam. So that's why we are discussing it in deep manner. Clear? Next thing, next important, relevance of NAM after Cold War. Next important thing. In the context of equitable international order, democracy is a fundamental norm. Do you get it? In the context of equitable international order, democracy is a fundamental, essential norm. And NAM represents majority, as I mentioned, 55% of world's population. And two-thirds of UN members. Hence, in order to maintain the international order, means basically we here, in other word, we are going to mention BOP, balance of power. If you want to maintain balance of power, then democracy is required. If dictatorship is there, then dictatorship or monarchy is there, they are going to start the follow policy of expansion, and it is a threat for the world. Democracy, in democracy we respect the life of individual, along with that we respect the sovereignty of any particular country. Clear? So for that reason, to maintain BOP, it required democracy. It required democracy, and now represents the democracy. Next thing, issues like disarmament, terrorism are posing threat to international peace. As some of you forget about, I think so, you forget this thing, disarmament. So I just want to let you know example of North Korea, their leader, yes, Kim Jong-un second, in short, a chubby man, a man with the chubby cheeks. Don't you think so that every week he is going to fire any missile, just test any missile? It was a daily rating for them. Clear? They threaten other countries like South Korea. So don't you think there is a need of disarmament, including Iran? Iran was developing nuclear weapon. Iran was developing nuclear weapon. Developing a nuclear weapon is not a big deal, but the most important thing is that to keep the secrecy, because it is a very dangerous thing. If it is fall under the wrong hand, then they are going to destroy the world. So that's why disarmament madness to be ended. So these issues are very common. Terrorism is very important issue, and you know India is a victim of it. India is a victim of terrorism. Best example, parliamentary attack, and very famous another attack, 26 by 11. This was the most horrifying day for India. 26 by 11, we lost anything. And day by day, the terrorist activities were going on in the neighboring or in the bordering states. So this is a problem India faced. But do you really think so? Whether India is alone in this case? No, there are other countries also facing the problem of terrorism. For example, USA face the same problem. France face the same problem. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, etc. Means almost all the countries in the world faces this problem. And terrorism, disarmament are basically threat to international peace. And now is a peaceful moment. So it can play a meaningful role. So NAM is still relevant. NAM is still relevant. Next, extension of democracy and human rights are two core issues in present world. Yes, extension of democracy, end of dictatorship, end of electoral dictatorship, promotion of human rights, These are the core issues in the world, and now represent anti-subjugation, anti-dominance approach. So don't you think so now is still relevant? Don't you think so now is still relevant? Because these two ideas are universal idea and now follow the universal idea. So now is still relevant. Now is still relevant. Clear? Everyone? Any doubt? Yes, do you have any doubt? Yes, do you have any doubt? So, if we look at the noun, if we look at the noun, then you will get to know, you will get to know that noun, what exactly the noun, whether it is based on neutrality. No, it's not an passive neutrality, it is an active neutrality. It is a positive concept, responsive concept, independent stand. That is neutrality we mentioned. Then we mention about the independent foreign policy, active response. Okay. Then we mention about the features of noun, independent status, non-neutrality, dynamic and active response, not based on any principle, specific principle, but based on here. It was a point, and that is important for all of us. That is, it is based on realistic and pragmatic approach. Realistic and pragmatic approach, and it works for the national interest of the country. Means national interest is always important for the members of NAM. Next, it is not a third block. It is not at all the third block or to counter the third, means act as a third force. It is an alternative for them. Objectives of NAM we mentioned: to maintain independent style, abolition of colonialism, imperialism, maintenance of international peace, end of racism, strengthening UN as an international institution. Clear? Then relevance of NAM for third world, means we mention about the all third world countries. What is important for them? NAM help them to maintain independent outlook. NAM help them to promote their national interest. NAM help them to promote economic development. NAM gives them an international recognition, and they protect themselves from any kind of foreign dominance. Then we mentioned what NAM achieved till that, role of NAM in international affairs. So we mentioned about NAM. They stood against decolonization. They stood against domination. Then they maintained independent stand after independence. Then South-South cooperation, North-South cooperation, alternative to the Cold War policy to promote peace and cooperation. Then how it helped India? So we mentioned that because of that, India maintained the good relation with both the power blocks. Along with that, this NAM helped us to take independent stand, and we took such stand in Korean War, we took such stand in Suez Canal crisis and all. It allowed us to develop ourselves, and along with that, the most important point we mentioned, after disintegration of USSR, it helped to establish a sound bilateral relations with the states, with the other states. Next, there were several question marks over the role of NAM, whether NAM is relevant till today, it served the purpose, where it is having disunity, why should not dissolve it? So the answer lies in the principle over which NAM is based. As we mentioned, it is not based, means not established for any particular purpose. It is based on universal principle, and this universal principle always supported the idea of peace, and peace is required for worldwide, so NAM is important. Then we mentioned it is the end of Cold War, but then didn't mean end of conflict. So conflict is there, NAM should be there. It is end of colonialism, imperialism means end of exploitation, but it doesn't mean end of other form of exploitation, and NAM should be there. Then we mention about maintenance of independent outlook of a nation is required in today's world, so NAM is relevant. Then development of economic perspective is important, so this is important aspect of NAM, national interest, economic development. Next we mention in this world there is a requirement of cooperation among the developing nations like South-South cooperation, so NAM is still relevant. To strengthen the international organization like United Nations, IMF, World Bank, so NAM is relevant because they stood for the idea of democratization of this institution. Clear? Next, issue of sustainable development is there, and it deals with the environment, and NAM always supported the environmental protection, so NAM is relevant. Next we mention that to maintain the BOP, democracy is required, and NAM is based on the principle of democracy. Next we mention about disarmament is important issue in today's world, along with the terrorism is an important issue, and NAM supported the idea of peace, so NAM is relevant. And finally we mentioned the extension of democracy. If you want to extend the democracy, if you want to promote human rights, these are the necessity of today's world, and NAM supported this idea. Clear? So do you have any doubt, any question, any query? Yes, everyone, do you have any doubt, any question, any query? If you have, please let me know. Some of you ask me, sorry, some of you ask me my how to connect with me. So this is my Telegram. You can connect me to this Telegram channel, Unacademy underscores Harshvardhan. So yes, everyone. Yes, before ending the session, I just want to ask you, do you have any doubt related to NAM? Whether any point is confusing to us? Do you want me to explain that point? Please let me know. No doubt. Everyone? Yes, anyone is there who is having such doubts and all? No? Okay. So that's all for today's lecture. Thank you very much for your valuable time. Tomorrow we are going to meet at the same time, 11 a.m. Yes, and tomorrow we are going to discuss that first phase of international relation, first phase of Indian foreign policy, that is 1947 to 62. Clear? So that's all from my side. Thank you very much. We will meet by tomorrow.